Hey guys, Peter here to tell you about the latest from Feuerschwanz, Knightclub, out August 22nd on Napalm Records. The album has 12 tracks, 40 minutes in length, and this is the band's 12th full-length studio album. They are a German folk metal band. Now, when it comes to the design of this record, I'm not a fan of how these songs are put together from a track listing standpoint. I am a fan of the album starting off with Knightclub and finishing off with Lords of Fire. Those two songs have the right energy to be where they are, and they kind of tie the album together from a beginning and end standpoint. It's everything else in between that feels a little bit off. And to me, it feels a little bit off because the first three songs of the album are filled with energy. Knightclub, Valhalla, which is a song that features Doro on vocals, and then you have Gangnam Style, a cover. I would have liked to see these songs more spread out throughout the record in order to create more ebbs and flows, because you also have the three singles right at the top, so three songs that the listeners are familiar with, and then you start to discover the record. And I think having a little bit of familiarity in the middle of songs that you're about to discover makes the overall record a little bit more balanced, a little bit more cohesive. The way it sits, it almost creates a U-shape. A lot of energy right at the top of the album, and then it dips down because the songs become a lot more folky with a lot more heavier elements, and then it brings back itself up again with Lords of Fire right at the end. So it's an album design that doesn't really showcase, in my opinion, the overall quality that the album has. It makes for a more difficult journey from start to end. As far as the sound is concerned, I really enjoy the overall modern folk metal sound of this album, with a lot of emphasis both on the folk side but also on the metal side. The reason for that is simple. This album has a lot of heaviness in it. Maybe not an album that's consistently heavy from beginning to end, because like I mentioned earlier, the first three songs of the record are not necessarily heavy tracks. They're more bright, bigger sounding, almost like arena style songs. But the rest of the album does offer a lot of heaviness, not just from the guitars, but from the guitars and drums. This is an album that really pays attention to those two elements and brings in a lot more metal to mix in with the overall folk that's always been a trademark of the band. So that sense of heaviness is a positive, because it makes the songs a little bit more robust, it gives the songs more texture, it makes the songs a little bit more richer overall, and it definitely makes the album feel more powerful all around. The drums playing a huge role in that, and the guitars as well. Once you get down to the folkier side of the album, there are a few songs that are driven by that folkiness, but there's not many. Most of them, you're gonna see those folk elements better mixed in, better interlaced with the overall textures of the songs, and they're there to create nuances. They're there to add to the atmosphere, add melodies, bring brightness into the room, but not necessarily to be the focal point of the tracks. There are a few in which they are, but there's plenty of songs on this record where the folk elements take a back seat. That to me is a little bit of a different dynamic for the band. And then when you add that sense of heaviness from the drums and guitars, this really creates still Feuerschwanz sound, but with a little bit of a different twist to it, which allows the album to not necessarily sound like any of the previous records that they have released. And when you've released an album almost every single year for the last 5 years, you definitely have to change a little bit of your DNA, at the very least change a little bit of the formula behind your sound, so that each and every single record has its own uniquenesses. Each and every single record sounds fresh, and it makes itself relevant to the listener and to the fans of the band. So I like the overall approach. I like the presentation. Definitely the overall mixing and production on this album is at a high level, because it really allows you to see the elements that exist throughout the record have different moments within the album to be the ones that drive the songs, either the heaviness or the folkiness. Once you get into the vocals, the album is solid. solid vocally. I really love the dynamics. I love the fact that you're going to have songs in English, songs in German, songs with both English and German, really creating a very interesting tapestry as far as the vocals are concerned, which makes the album overall sound even better, feel even richer, and more organic as far as the lyrical content, as the storytelling aspect is concerned. To me, I've always gravitated more towards their German songs, but I also really like their English songs because, in my opinion, they feel, at least for an English speaker, they feel a little bit more classic. They feel a little bit easier to digest and definitely add a certain level of hookiness to them. Mixing both on this album in the way that it's mixed, it just brings the perfection of those two worlds together as one. So I really like that aspect of the album, and it works really well as far as the lyrics and the song titles and even the themes that each and every single song has. So everything comes together perfectly as far as the vocals are concerned, making this another really solid album by Feuerschwanz. I just feel, like I said earlier on, because of the design of the record, it feels very unbalanced. You start off with tons of energy, then you see a dip, and then it finishes off with Lords of Fire, another song that has big sound and a lot of energy in it. I would have liked to see a more balanced overall approach, because I think you would have allowed certain songs on this record that are gonna feel a little bit too dark and maybe perhaps a little bit harder to digest, even though they're super melodic and very folky. It would have given those songs a little bit more room to breathe if they were followed by a track like Gangnam Style, for example. So I think the album overall would have been better served with a better design in order to enhance the individual qualities of these songs. Now, as far as favorite tracks are concerned, I want to start off with Name the Rose. This is a phenomenal song. While not being a super bright track like Gangnam Style or like Knightclub, it doesn't have that hook. It doesn't have that fun attitude to it. This track has a little bit more darkness to it, but it's one of my favorites, if not my favorite song on the record. I just love the melody that it has. I love how open it is in the verses, the folky vibe that the track has, and how that folkiness of elements really blends well with the guitar sound. The chorus is incredibly memorable, both from a vocal standpoint and from a sound standpoint. It's a massive chorus. The chorus really stands out. So it's a track that has a more narrow verses. The verses definitely feel a little bit more closed in, and then a super open chorus with a lot of melody, a lot of folk elements in it, some heavier guitars adding to that overall texture. A really complete experience from a sound point of view, but also from a vocal standpoint. The darkness that this song has at times, it also helps sell the track, and it gives it its own sense of uniqueness. Next we have Testament, fluid, heavy song. The drums are really heavy on this track, and I think they are the catalyst to the overall heaviness that this song has. The guitars have some heaviness to it, but they're there more to enhance that drum sound and almost like bring it up to the surface, really helping driving the song forward. The chorus is super epic. Once again, both on the musical side but also on the vocal side. It's just a very memorable chorus that opens up the track like a flower, because the heaviness that the song has in the verses also closes in the song a little bit, and then having more of an open style chorus definitely allows the track to gain in size and to gain in brightness. The vocals in the verses also feel a little bit more contained, a little bit more compact, and then a little bit more rich, a little bit more open once you get into the chorus. Very guitar focused song that allows the drums to still play a heavy role, and play a heavy role as far as the heaviness is concerned, but this is a very guitar centric song beginning to end. Very rich guitar sounding song where they use the folk elements more as an underlining melody and definitely not as the driving force behind the track. Last but definitely not least, Eisenfaust. This is, in my opinion, a more traditional Feuerschwanz folk song. It checks all of those boxes. When you look at the way the vocals come across, with a lot of folkiness into the delivery, into the melodies. When you look at the sound, it's a track that really uses the folk elements to drive the song, to create a sonic fingerprint on the track. It's not a heavy song, it's more of a folk song than it is a heavy song. And then it's a track that mixes in German with English, with German in the verses, English in the chorus, which allows the chorus to be more memorable, therefore creating a more memorable impact around the song. But the dynamic of the vocal changes from a language standpoint add energy and add to the overall folkiness and brightness that this track has. Really interesting song from that perspective. This is it. Feuerschwanz, Knightclub, out August 22nd. Hit me up in the comment section. Let me know your thoughts. I'll see you all in the next video. Take care, guys.